Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
Well, hello, welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. I gotta tell you, it's been a really interesting last couple of days. I can definitely see why now. Chris Atlee calls me the eighth. What does he call me? He calls me the atheist Satan. Yeah, the Satan of atheism, or something along those lines. Yeah, he thinks I'm somehow like related to Satan because of the controversies I get myself involved with on Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, they've been grand the last couple of days. I could definitely say there's not a group that I haven't pissed off. But you know what? Hey, that's how it goes, man. I stick by my guns. I put out information. If people want to discuss it, that's great. If they don't, that's fine too. But as soon as people start being hyperbolic and start insulting me, insulting my intelligence, insulting what I know, and start worse, lying about me, then yeah, I start blocking people. So unfortunately, I had to block a few people. It is what it is. I don't really like to block. I really don't. I even tell people, hey, look, back off because, I'm just not interested in having this discussion with you. But when they start putting out anti-Semitic things, racist things, I have no tolerance for that. I just can't. If somebody's in the mindset where they're so entrenched in something, where they become an ideologue, I don't see the point any longer. Especially, I've said before, I will not have racists on my show. I will not have, like white supremacists or Nazis or Holocaust deniers anywhere near my show or me. I mean that. I really do mean that. Because, what good does it do having conversations with those types of people? I don't think there's anything to be had, at least from my perspective or from me. From other people, possibly, right? Yeah, the atheist devil. That's what he calls me, the atheist devil. And I love that. I think it's hilarious. I still got a little bit of cough, as you guys know. Yes, I'm getting it checked out. It's allergies, but it's been several months now, and I apologize. Yeah, when you have somebody who's just inflexible in their ideology, let other people deal with that. They might enjoy it. I don't. I like to have the conversations, and unfortunately, those types of people are just not conducive to have a conversation. But anyways, let's piss off more people. I guess we're going to piss off Christians today, apparently. I've already pissed off the atheist community, so I might as well go for the Christian community next. I guess maybe next week I'll do Islam or something. I don't know. No, I probably not, because I know nothing about Islam. Like, seriously, very little that it would be really just of no interest to anybody for me to ever talk about Islam. But let me put the link to join in the video here, because I see Chris out there. He is off work now. 1 sec. And then we'll get going. All right, there you go. And I'll pin it, and you guys can join. All right. All right, so let me get a little backstory, as I try to do on these types of subjects. Genetically Modified Skeptic just recently came out with a video, and it was quite good. Now, I'm not going to front. I've never really had any major issues with Genetically Modified Skeptic. Him and I had a talk about atheism and agnosticism years ago, and he was very upfront with his position. And I was like, cool. I was like, cool. I respect it. That's your position. And yeah, I don't see, any reason to really like make it an issue. He was very clear that he uses atheism in the way he does. because of political reasons, and that he does it for demographics, and it's just more comfortable for him. And that's it. I mean, he doesn't argue that I'm wrong. He doesn't argue that what I've said is wrong. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Hey, you're upfront with it. That's, what you believe, and that's fine. I didn't see a reason to even go further than that. So I really respected that fact that he was upfront with that. But I haven't really had much contact with him since, if any. But I did watch his video, and it was good. It was really good. And the video was basically about April. That's true. That's true. Yeah, we don't piss on atheist or theist here. We piss on stupid people. Yeah, I'm equal opportunity when it comes to who I dogpile. And I don't care if you're an atheist or a theist. It makes no difference to me. I just want you to be a rational human being that can justify your position, at least have intelligent discourse on it. And I see a lot of that not happening any longer. I see a lot of people having the entrenchment effect, the backfire effect, that they're so engrossed in their indoctrination that they're not even willing to talk about the subjects. If they find that you do not agree with them, you're automatically vilified. You're automatically labeled pejorative, such as bigot, racist, homophobe, transphobe, devil worshiper. I mean, theist. I get that the most. I really do. I really get that the most. I'm a theist. I'm here talking about Satan being the new Christ, and I am a theist somehow. I don't get that. I don't understand that. I will never understand that. But unfortunately, that's what I get probably the most. And I'm not saying that's an insult. I'm not saying that being called a theist is an insult. It's not. But I'm not a theist. It is certainly a pejorative in the fact that they're trying to say something about my belief that I don't actually have, which is dishonest, right? So, anyways, oh yeah, so you guys, some of you guys have watched that video. Good. So you guys would know kind of where I'm coming from here. So anyways, he starts to argue, or he's not even arguing, he's just kind of explaining a little bit that the concept of Satan, that comes from Christianity, has been so changed over the years. There was, Milton's Dante's Inferno. There was Milton's Paradise Lost, and then Dante's Inferno, right? And both of them really gave a little bit more solidification of what our concepts is when it came to Satan. And they were glorified as far as one of them, and this is, again, something that Genetically Modified Skeptic, I think, articulated very well, that Satan was somehow, in some way, glorified as a rebellious kind of entity, right? He was an archangel that rebelled against God in some narratives, right? And not all. But one of the narratives is that it was almost noble for him to step up against God, because whether it was that man was going to get free will or not, some people have argued that, Satan didn't like the plan of salvation, and that he didn't think man should have, or he thought man shouldn't have free will. But, the story goes he fell from heaven and took a lot of the host of heaven with him, right? 1/3 of the host of heaven, which to me is kind of interesting in the fact that, he was the first kind of heavy metal kind of guy, rock and roll. This is one of the reasons why rock and roll and heavy metal, which I love, is synonymous with him, is that he rebelled against the paradigm. He said, no, I think there's a problem here. Let's discuss. And what he got for it was kicked out of heaven and sent to hell. Again, I'm not saying that actually happened, obviously. I'm certainly not, glorifying a being called Satan if he exists, because he is probably an evil entity. But other narratives of Christianity make Satan out to be the foil for God, the antithesis of God. If God is the great benevolent salvational means by which people continue on into an afterlife, then Satan is the one that's trying to prevent that from happening, right? They make Satan out to be this moral monster that is so bitter that he got cast out of heaven that he wants everybody to go down with him. I think there's some issues with that, obviously, because, if Satan did rebel against God, he made his plans clear. He made it known to the angels. He made it known to the host of heaven. Hey, look, I got some problems the way things are run up here. And he was cast out. I don't see why Satan wouldn't use that same approach after being cast out. Why does he have to hide himself? I'm sure a lot of people have heard, the greatest trick that Satan ever did was making people not believe in him, which is certainly not a logical thing, right? It's a good idiom, but it's certainly not something that really makes sense logically. If something doesn't exist, you can argue anything convinced you that they didn't exist, right? I mean, any entity can be put into that instantiation of statement. Anybody, anything, you can put anything you want there. You know, hey, pink unicorns don't exist. How do I know this? Because they convinced me that they don't exist. That's actually a fallacy. I forget the name of the fallacy. It's the somebody can remind me. What's the fallacy that because something is wrong that it's wrong, or I forget. Anyways, I'll have to look that up. But excuse me. But like I said, anybody can say, hey, look, evidence of Satan is that fact that you don't believe in him, and that's the reason why he exists. It makes no sense. So I was wondering, why would Satan not want to make himself known more? Why would he not, say, yes, I'm here. I argued against God, and let me tell you why. But we still don't see that happening. Matter of fact, Chris, who may be joining us soon, has done certain satanic rituals, and I don't think he's ever actually seen Satan or any kind of devil manifest. It'd be interesting if he ever does. I'd be cool to hear that story. So, but anyways, in the narrative, God is this omnibenevolent being that people require to have salvation to live forever. Again, why you would want to live forever, I'm not quite sure. You will have seen everything, done everything, and there's a show called The Good Place, which really does a full narrative arc on this particular aspect of salvation. Is that if you are living in heaven, what are you going to be doing for eternity? Just worshiping God for eternity? That doesn't sound much of a heaven. Some people will go, yeah, I want to do that. I want to worship God for eternity. That's going to get really boring really fast. I just can't imagine a life of I'm not going to say slavery, but submissiveness, at least. I mean, if God is all powerful and God did create everything, and he is, really that awesome and amazing, maybe I can see it. But the way the biblical account of God is, the Old Testament, doesn't make him appear that way. The old version of Yahweh doesn't appear to be this, really, nice guy. As a matter of fact, he's vengeful. He's is angry. He's jealous. He will do atrocities, moral atrocities, like killing families and babies and kids, and just has no compunction about the immorality of that. And that's the reason why a lot of people will say that the Old Testament God and the New Testament God are very different beings. And there is obviously influences on the New Testament as far as the Old Testament, and later on what they would consider to be this satanic entity. So the reason I title this Satan is the New Christ is because a lot of people are turning toward humanism and secular humanism. A lot of people are turning even to Satanism as not a belief that there is such a being called Satan, but as this rebellion against the encroachment of Christian fundamentalism in our school system and in our social systems and in our government. Because I'm a secularist, okay? As an agnostic, I'm a non-believer, and I'm also a secularist that I believe very strongly that the church and state should remain separate. There should be no encroachment. I'm not even happy with saying it in benediction or prayer in the beginning of Congress or a session or anything like that. I think that is inappropriate, especially because what the Temple of Satan came in and did is said, oh, well, if you can have a Christian prayer, we can have a satanic prayer. You're right. You're right, because of freedom of religion, if you allow one, you allow all, and Satanism is an actual religion. Both forms, the most common forms are Church of Satan and Temple of Satan. Now, the Church of Satan, I'm not really a huge fan on it. I've had a couple guests on from the Church of Satan, but I find their approach to be more fruit on the ground, and they do believe in some kind of occult spirit magic as far as like chaos magic and a few other things. So they do believe in a little bit more in the supernatural than the Temple of Satan, which are ontological naturalists. They don't believe at all there's any kind of being called Satan. And the way they do their, mockery, I guess, is on a much higher level. I mean, they take it to the nth degree. And I think that's, if it's going to be done, that's how you're going to be doing it. You have to do it big and bold to make a statement, or you're just not going to get your point across. Anybody can go out there, and just mock a theist. It's so juvenile, and I've said before that anybody who just starts using terms like Sky Daddy or Sky Fairy, it's not somebody I'm going to have a conversation with, and not somebody that a theist would probably have a conversation with. It's low level. It's just schoolyard type mockery. It's not even really correct as far as the interpretation of the theist version of God, and so it's a straw man. But even if somebody could argue that it isn't strawmanning them, it's just childish. Yeah. But the way the Temple of Satan does it, they do a lot of actually going in and saying, oh, this is the law that you wrote. Let's test this. Let's see how it applies to all religions, including Satanism. And so Satanism being this rebellion against God and this rebellion against religion, and especially what I would consider to be fundamentalist religions and fundamentalism, is it getting more prevalent? I think to a degree it is. And people are wondering, how can people turn to Satan? And he's the archetype of evil. He's the epitome of all things unholy. But again, isn't that how movies like I don't want to say The Exorcist, because that was actually a demon called Pazuzu, but movies similar to The Exorcist involving the devil. The devil is always portrayed as a super malevolent being that just wants to do like a Hellraiser kind of stuff. But of course, we never see that actually happen in real life, right? Nobody's ever had those kind of experiences. And so, the way people are picturing Satan now is just basically this entity that says, excuse me, sorry about that. This entity that basically says, hey, look, I have some problems with the system here, and you might be the omnibenevolent ruler of the universe, but I got some problems. And so the Satan says, hey, to the Christians, we got some problems with what you're putting out, and there obviously is some problems. And so I see Satanism becoming a lot more prevalent than probably it ever was, and I think that was something we should talk about. And if Christianity didn't take hold, would people be Satanists? Would the story that Satan fell from heaven and was the rebel and the good guy in the story, would that be the new religion? Maybe 10,000 years from now. Gnosticism and Christianity competed for at least 400 years for the minds of people. Gnosticism between the 1st and 4th century was a competitive theory to Christianity. So we all could be like worshiping Sophia if it wasn't for the fact that Christianity took over, and I do think was taking over countries by force. People were physically threatened to convert. Now, I don't think that people can just suddenly change their beliefs. I think they can be indoctrinated, and I think that they could pretend to believe something out of fear, but would God save them from that? Is that something that is something that God would go, oh, look, well, you didn't really actually believe. You just did it out of fear. First of all, that's not a just God. But anyways, I've opened up the panel. What do you guys think about this? Do you think that's Satanism is now the new Christ of salvation for people that are trying to keep fundamentalists out of our school system? Because I think that's the biggest pushback. I think people have said enough's enough. We don't want religion in school. We don't want people to be indoctrinated in a very specific type of religion or any religion. And unfortunately, the fundamental Baptist version of religion is seeming to be, taking over and taking hold in a lot of places. And even still, we have people that argue we should argue things like creationism in our school system, which is just absolutely so beyond absurd. I couldn't even imagine anybody in the right mind arguing for that. Mostly because even if you did actually believe that, you have to recognize that that is your personal belief, and that's not science. It's your personal belief. And in a public system, they have to go by what is known. They have to go by what is established. If you can overturn that establishment, you can overturn what's known and find that it was never actually known, it was wrong, then do so. Nobody stops you for that. That's one thing about our system, when you can have free speech and you can have democracy and you can have the ability to dissent, is that, hey, look, I think you're wrong. Let me show you why. And that has happened. It has happened numerous times. That's how people change their positions, and especially that's how we update our science. But it takes a lot of work to do so. Going on a Facebook page or going on a Twitter and saying, hey, look, I've overturned the theory of evolution is not going to get you famous. It's not going to win you a Nobel. It's never going to happen in the history. I can guarantee it, till the day the universe ceased to exist, nobody is going to get famous for overturning evolution or relativity on a Facebook page or on a Twitter page. This is not how it works. Although if it ever does happen that way, you can come back and say I was wrong, and I'll totally eat crow on it. How about that? Chris, are you able to come in? I saw you out there, but I haven't been ignoring the live chat. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get all that out before I started engaging. Redeem one. Legion is out of school and Satan is moving on. Well, I don't, like I said, I don't even, let's do a hypothetical. Let's say that Satan does exist. What is he actually doing? I mean, is he actually like tempting people? That would require some kind of interaction with Satan and people, which means Satan is everywhere and Satan is constantly tempting people and things of that nature. Why? I mean, do we actually need Satan to tempt us to do something that would be considered blasphemous against God or sinful? No, I don't think anybody needs that. I mean, it's basically human nature to do things that what some Christians would consider sin, which I don't. But it doesn't require Satan to do that. And what is he going to do for eternity with billions of people? You know, I'm just, I got you. I fooled you. I don't know. The whole story just makes no sense to me as far as pitting evil against good. If Satan exists, first of all, in the original stories, Satan wasn't even that bad of a guy. Satan was supposed to be the chosen one. Lucifer was the angel of the morning that basically was the great Satan, that was the chief prosecutor, so to speak, on Judgment Day, or at least, as far as to prosecute people for their sins to God and make a case against them for God. And even in what little I do know about Islam, I believe in Islam he was called Iblis. And the only reason I remember that is, yes, we're going to go off topic here for a second, but hey, it's my show. If you guys remember the one of the best shows ever, Battlestar Galactica, the original, there was an episode where they came across a crashed spaceship, and they ran into Count Iblis, who ended up, spoiler if you haven't seen it, but ends up being the devil. By the way, if you don't know this, which I'm sure most people do, but Battlestar Galactica was very, very ingrained in Mormon theology. And in fact, they even had angels in there. If you guys remember the starship that had the angels in it and all that, and they were looking for a planet that was Kolob. So yeah, Mormon theology. But I remember that Count Iblis was the devil. Yeah, Satan is the adversary in some versions, right? It wasn't until later on where he became a lot more malevolent. And especially, I haven't read Paradise Lost, but I did read Dante's Inferno ages and ages ago. All the levels of hell, and if I remember correctly, and I didn't much prepare for this, so I really apologize. I didn't think I was going to go down this route, but if I remember correctly from Paradise Lost, Satan was on the 9th level of hell, and he was frozen. He was just like frozen, in a position. And then was it Virgil that was what was that? Which one? It was Virgil that was showing him each level, wasn't it? Man, it's been a long time. But yeah, there was versions of hell for lawyers and evildoers and sinners and liars, and each circle had a very specific sin that they were trying to do penance for. So, let's see. Let me go through here. Lady Firebrand would be interested to know if Satan allows slavery, thinks women have no agency over their bodies, and when we die, we'll be forced to undergo eons of torture for not agreeing with him. What's the funniest thing is that I bet Satan, it was probably for bodily autonomy. I bet Satan was probably against slavery, at least the original version of Satan. I don't think, well, no, I mean, let me rephrase that. I mean, if I remember correctly, he wanted man to be subjugate to God. He wanted man not to have free agency and free will to choose against God. So maybe he did want man to be all slaves. So I don't know. That's a good question. Daniel Cooper says, better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. And to some, that motto would make sense. And again, I'm under the impression, and I've said this before, if some omnibenevolent being does exist that's all good and all powerful, then yeah, you probably want to go stay with him. But you would also know what was up, right? If you were able to learn all the secrets of the universe and why things panned out the way they did and what happened, historically, then sure, God's probably going to tell you what happened if you asked and stuff like that, and you probably want to be in heaven. But I think the motto, better to rule in hell than serve in heaven, is an example people that said, hey, I don't want to be a slave to somebody. I don't want to worship somebody for eternity. God gave me autonomy. God gave me free will, which I don't accept libertarian free will, but let's go arguendo on that. But he gave me will. He gave me the ability to choose. And I choose, to have my own path. Why would you be punished for that? Why would God give you the ability to choose and then punish you for that? That would be something like, hey, I want you to go do that. I mean, I would have liked my daughter to be more in STEM. She has had some. I loved her to go, be a scientist or astrophysicist, but that's not her path. She's chosen other things. Okay, I support her either way, right? It's her choice. It's her free will. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm going to condemn you for eternity of hell because you didn't, take the path that I wanted you to do. That just makes no sense. Ash Scott, hey Ash, how you been? Ash says, would God consider it a sin if we finally translated the Bible into English? All those haths and does don't make any more holy. I wouldn't imagine so, because the Bible has been translated how many hundreds of times? And I am one of those people that think the things get lost each translation. If you look at the NIV and you look at the King James, I mean, they're read differently to me. Now, I'm not a biblical scholar. I don't know shit about the Bible. I honestly don't. But even as a very, very lay person, you can read different versions of the Bible and see contextually there are some differences there. And maybe there's some versions. I mean, there is actually some versions that are just plain English out there. I've seen them, so I don't know if you've looked into them, but there are some very plain English Bible that just get rid of all the fancy language and just says, blah, 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 which, it gets the point across, because again, these should be conceptual things. I don't understand people that are Bible inerrantist and Bible literalist and Bible infallibilist to think that the Bible, word for word, page for page, letter for letter, is something that is just so perfect that it cannot be wrong, and that any changes in it are evil. Because the Bible has been so many times translated into multiple different languages. That makes no sense. But anyways, welcome, Chris. I'm going to put you on screen. There we go. There you are. Hey, yo. Ozzy. Ozzy. All right. By the way, this is the Horns of the Devil. Mendel's, Mephistopheles, Asmodeus, Azeroth, Bilal. Whatever you want to term. Satan has a lot of names. But anyways, Chris, is your mic working? I can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Okay. We'll wait for a second. I have some tea for my cough. It's hibiscus tea. I don't know if you can see. Can you see in there? See that? It's purple. You probably can't see very well, but it's purple tea. It's hibiscus. It's potent stuff. Yeah, this is no joke tea. I mean, wow. It's very, very herbal. My favorite tea is I have this one herbal tea. It's some kind of plant stuff, but it's so delicious. It's an herbal tea. But Chris is having mic problems.
Can you hear me
he's
now?
figuring that out. Oh wait, I think I hear you.
Hello?
Yes. Yeah. And
Okay, you can hear me now?
yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I got adjust on my end, but all right.
All right.
There we go. All right, buddy. Hey, how you been?
I've been good, man. It's been a really tiring week, though. I've been pretty crazy at work, so.
Well, at least you can able to join us. So I don't know if what you heard so far. I don't know if you're at work listening to it, but I just throw it out there. What do you think of Satanism nowadays, as far as why people are turning to it? I know that you practice a form of it. And do you think that, even one day it might be the new Christ, that it might take over Christianity because people are just so sick of religious fundamentalism?
I think it'll grow in popularity. I don't think that it's going to be like Christian level big. I don't think it's going to overtake Christianity. I don't either,
by the way. I don't actually think it's going to overtake Christianity.
I figured you didn't, but yeah. No, I'm thinking that it's probably going to be more of a thing that kind of grows in popularity, especially at least the secular version will. I think that a lot of people find the idea attractive, and just so kind of like for an example, I'll just give you a reason why I turned to it. Well, number one, when I was a kid, I was around 13 or so, outright, I was like getting kind of tired of the religion I grew up with, and so I started looking into different belief systems. I was still holding on to supernatural beliefs back then, so I heard about the Church of Satan. I read some stuff from the Church of Satan. I, just kind of dibble dabbled in a little bit of this, a little bit of that, But one thing that but at the same time, on an emotional level, I guess it would the occult type arena just fascinated me, and it resonated with me, right? And so fast forward to where I'm at today, after I left, that cult, uh, typically when people will leave cults, from what I'm hearing, is that they'll go on a journey of self-exploration to try to find themselves again, find out who they are, instead of having the cult identity, as Stephen Hassan, the inventor of the Byte model, would put it. Instead of taking on the cult personality, find their own personality, their true selves. And so, started looking towards different kinds of Satanism. And just recently, this has been several months back, but I was reading through the Satanic Bible again. And because I was like, I never did get to actually read this when I was a kid, because obviously my parents weren't going to let me have it.
I read it. I read it in high school.
Yeah, and I read through it, and so LaVey said some stuff that was good. He did contribute to the satanic community. But there was also one point where I got like halfway through it, I got disgusted and I threw it across my room, and then after that I gave it to one of my friends.
Well, he translated. There was supposed to be some of the writings from the Mad Arab. Remember I don't remember his name in Arabic. Abdu whatever. But it's supposed to be writings from that Arab. But Anil LaVey was a hedonist. To him, Satanism was all about hedonism and how it affects the individual. Some of the things they put down, I do agree with, as far as like,
same.
Look, if sex should be consensual, right? Anytime it's not, then you've committed some kind of egregious immoral act. But the Temple of Satan has kind of the same principles. In fact, the TST is much more, to me, secular humanism. Like you said, take all the aspects of the occultist stuff out of the picture, like anything relating to occult magic or chaos magic or sex magic, anything like that. But just look at it from a humanistic point of view. That's what TST is. It's just then they throw in the imagery.
Yeah, and well, I personally, so here's what I love about Satanism is the fact that it's completely, I guess you could almost even say, not just simply subjective, but relative to the person. So they say it's walking the left-hand path, and your left-hand path can look any way you want it to look. You don't even have to listen to metal music. You don't have to, dress up in black and all that. I mean, I like doing all that, but that's because I grew up, with heavy metal. My dad loved Metallica and all that kind of shit. So,
oh my God, is that old? Where the dads like Metallica now? Good God.
Yeah, dude. My dad was a 70s, 80s metalhead, and then now I'm more of the modern stuff. I like deathcore and whatnot. But anyway, what I was getting at was, see, there's aspects of Anton LaVey's teachings that I like, but there's certain things that, because I'm a hedonist too, I think that sex should be, you should be able to be free to do whatever sexual exploit you want to do, again, so long as there's consent involved between one or more parties. And you can incorporate that into your practice if you would like to, because no matter, for me, for the secular Satanist, it's going to be, you can add whatever you want to it, whatever occult kind of practices you want to, and all you have to do is look at it from a symbolic point of view. In other words, if I want to do, let's just say some ritual where I'm summoning a demon, well, I look at it as performance art. I think that's fun. It just sounds and looks cool,
and I don't have a single issue with it. At all. In fact, in high school, I used to have I was listening to Ozzy and Black Sabbath, and so I was really into the symbolism as well. You're old enough probably still to remember. Back in the day, there was these things called books. Okay, And yes, they were written on dead trees, believe it or not, right? And
Ew.
and you, yeah, I know. It's like already. It's like what is it? Necronomicon.
Necronomicon.
Yeah, Necronomicon, right? It's a Necronomicon of just dead trees rather than dead people or dead person. But you would get these bags from like supermarket, brown paper bags, and you would wrap them in these brown paper bags, and it became like an art to put a book cover on it, and then you would draw on the book cover, and so on the book cover I would have things like, a hand coming out like this with a pentagram. I would have like, runes from Speak of the Devil or something like that. I would have Black Sabbath written in Theban, the witches' alphabet. And I just like the imagery. And you know what?
Yeah,
nobody gave a shit. Nobody was like, oh, Steve's weird. Nobody gave a shit. Everybody had their little clicks. Yeah, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, a lot of them were into metal at the time. I mean, when it was in the days of Motley Crue, days of I would like Live Wire. I remember that. I first heard that, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. And then I heard Iron Maiden, and I was like, oh my god, this is changing my life. And then I heard Rush 2112, which isn't considered metal, it's progressive rock, but that was when I knew my life had changed. And then I went to the Navy, and then I had bought an album. I think it was 1987, if I'm not mistaken. I think it may have came out in 85, but I've been a few years late. But it was 87 or so that I bought the album or the tape, and it was called Ride the Lightning.
Yeah,
I think it came out in 85, but I didn't get it till like a couple years later. But yeah, and so I really agree with you as far as the performance art. It's just something you do, and it cleanses your mind, and it just relaxes you, and it just focus you, and you enjoy the imagery. Knock yourself out. Do I think you're ever going to conjure anything? No, I don't. But if you ever do, let me know.
If you do, that'd be cool though. No, I'd love that. I mean, because I will at least admit, I would like to do some rituals like that, and then just to kind of see, hey, shit, what if it happens? Then what?
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Okay, for example,
I'd be up with that.
So I think you have to be careful of is not the ontological aspects, but the psychological aspects. I mean, because back in the day, there was a thing where you go to a mirror, right, and you say Bloody Mary 3 times, and Bloody Mary would appear in the dark. And a lot of people swear to God they saw something, right? And you know what? I believe that they did, but what they saw was the mind trying to apprehend the image, and in the dark things get distorted, and you're looking at yourself, and the mind plays tricks. I've seen it happen. I've had similar things happen where the mind will play a trick, and it's bizarre, but people will attribute that to supernatural. And especially if you're doing something like I used to play with Ouija boards. They work as far as they move, but of course I think you're moving it, right? It's the ideomotive effect. So I don't think there's anything supernatural. However, it is very convincing for somebody who already accepts that it's a supernatural, and it's very convincing that maybe somebody who doesn't, who is oh my god, how do you explain this? Well, the only thing that explains it is supernatural. Well, no, there are other explanations, because I gotta tell you, and I'm not fronting here, dude, if you don't have one, I don't know if you ever tried one, but the Ouija board, even by yourself, can be very, very trippy.
No, I have one. I have it at my altar for part of my aesthetic at my altar.
Have you tried one?
Oh yeah. I mean only once, because I had to kind of get over some psychological fears that I had of the board itself, because it's always drilled into you as a kid, and then you hear stories from your family. Yeah, it, not only just that, but they're like, oh yeah, and then it said only this information that only I could have known, me and my grandma could have known, that kind of thing. And what's really funny, I recently watched a video about the Ouija board, where these people, they had this big ass Ouija board, and they all put their hands on it, but the people putting on this experiment basically blindfolded the people, and the board did absolutely nothing. It was moving, don't get me wrong, it was moving, but it was moving off the board. I mean, it was pointing to random stuff, the contradictions in which direction it's going to move in, no synchronicity whatsoever.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously,
you know what I mean?
If you can glean some actual actionable intelligence from a Ouija board, where it tells you like the combination of a safe or something, or it tells you the secret of the universe, or it gives you some kind of theory. Hey, that's cool. But that we never see that happening. The closest thing we've seen to people maybe claiming some kind of paranormal guidance is a lot of songwriters will claim that they, in transcendental meditation, they'll get a theme or a song or a hymn in their head.
There's a certain kind of,
which I believe. I actually believe that does happen. Not supernatural, but I've done transcendental meditation before. I've actually had breakthroughs and been in that altered state of consciousness. It is trippier than hell. I'm not even going to front. Absolutely trippy.
I would like to. I haven't gotten there yet.
I've only been able to do it for about 4 times by myself. I've had it happen accidentally, like you see paralysis. But when you actually do it yourself and you're sitting there going, okay, I'm going to make this happen. It may take a while, but once it does, you're just like a slingshot, and you're poof. You just have this another reality coming right at you, and you're like, this is trippy.
That's awesome, dude. I think that stuff's cool, and I would love to experience that. I haven't yet. I do meditate often. Problem that I have is I get distractions, where either one of 2 things will happen. One, my back will begin to hurt, or 2, my legs will start falling asleep. And so I have to straighten them out. But I mean, they have like chairs and. I just say try
a very comfortable chair. And you need sensory deprivation. You need to have complete darkness. Complete silence. I would try it without any kind of drugs or anything like that. I mean, some people will say like diphenhydramine will help, but I never need any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, because if you're gonna have an experience, I think it would be more plausible if you weren't on drugs, because all drugs do is just interact with the chemicals in your brain. It's just chemicals interacting with chemicals. There's nothing supernatural about that.
Yeah, I mean, it might facilitate it, but then you could say, well, yeah, it was the drugs. But if you were drug free, I mean, like I said, these things are very convincing to people that have never experienced them and then experienced it the first time. To them, especially, and I've always said this: we know that these things do happen. These are not. This is something that's not even unknown to science. Science knows people have lucid dreaming. Science knows that the people have called that.
That's cool. I don't know if you've ever done that, but that's fucking cool.
What's that? Lucid dreaming?
Lucid dreaming.
Yeah. Like, it's very similar.
Know you're dreaming.
Very similar.
Oh my God. I just did that. I mean, I've done it a few times in my life, but I did it really recently. And that was cool.
Yeah.
I saved my sister from certain death.
Yep. And transcendental meditation is almost exactly like lucid dreaming. The only difference, I think, is that you're putting yourself into it, right? You are trying to get to that stage. And so as far as like the reality, the sense of reality, they're almost indistinguishable from each other.
Yeah.
So you've had lucid dreaming, so you know what I'm talking about. And so these things do exist. Now, my argument has been this, is that if you and I have experienced this and other people have experienced that, and it does exist, I mean, even scientists say that exists, that's nothing to be questioned. But if they would have had that 2,000 years ago, how would they have interpreted that?
What do you think? Of course. I mean, they did. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they had the experience, not the science behind it. But,
right. But they had similar experiences to us, right? I mean, we're not that fundamentally different in biology over 2,000 years, right? There's not that a huge difference. And so when they had their lucid dreamings, they had to be thinking they're talking to gods and angels and things of that nature. Yeah. And so I think a lot of the ideas of religion come from something along those lines. I really honestly do. I think that a lot of it just comes from man's imagination. I think it comes from a want to explain things, and they didn't have the tools to do that back then. That does not mean that I don't believe the possibility of God is such that God can't exist. I don't even hold that God doesn't exist, but the versions of God that the Christian aspects, especially the fundamental ones, the younger creationist ones, I absolutely believe that is not correct, especially the fundamental Baptist ones. I cannot get away from that as fast enough. I think it's evil. I think that a lot of those religions have turned full on moral evils, the things that they preach. I mean, how could you justify claiming that you are a moral Christian that worships a omnibenevolent God and then says, oh, but I think we should throw gays off of buildings, or, oh, I think the government should exterminate gays? Those are incongruent with each other. They're incompatible statements.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know about this, man, but Oklahoma is trying to get a bill passed. I think it's called HB 8126. Let me see here. HB 2186. Yeah, and anyway, it's being called the anti-drag queen.
I'm familiar with it. Yep.
Yeah, and so that I just learned about it today, and that really pissed me off. And and it's just like you see where this bill is coming from. I mean, obviously, you're not seeing a group of atheists, agnostics, even new atheists coming out with their type of brand of fundamentalism and just saying, "Oh yeah, we don't want drag queens to do their
Well,
thing."
let me give you a little. It's not pushback on it, but let me kind of see if you agree with me on this. The problem isn't with drag queens, obviously. What they, the drag queen shows where they're highly exploitive, and highly exhibitionist when they're doing sexual things in front of children. That's the problem. And what happened, I think, was this: the religious right, the Baptist, the fundamentalists, and things like that, said, "Oh, look, now we have a reason to go after them, because now we're going to make this huge swath and say it's all drag queens, it's all drag shows, it's all evil. We're going to ban, all this other stuff, because they open the door to give them ammunition." Because I'm against these shows for kids. It's just anybody who thinks that gyrating half naked in front of a 3-year-old for a strip show is entertainment is something's wrong there. Matter of fact, it used to be adult only, where you could go even if you saw a leg in some of the burlesque shows, it was adults only. But now you have ass cheeks hanging out like they're nothing, and they're doing it in front of children. I find that to be morally egregious. But like I said, the religious right and those more fundamentalists came in and said, "Oh, look, now we're gonna go after all drag queens," when we know that 99.99% probably of all drag queens are absolutely benign. It's just a harmless form of entertainment. I have absolutely nothing against it whatsoever. And even they speak out against it. They're like, "No, we're not gonna do this in front of kids." In fact, I have yet to see one that argues for it. I don't know where they are. I'd like to talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, so on that specific thing, yes. I mean, of course, if you're doing if you as an adult are doing any kind of sexual activity in front of a child, since they cannot give informed consent, and also just the sheer fact of their age, yeah, that is morally egregious. I would totally agree with you. But if we're just talking about reading books in front of kids, or even educating
I don't have a problem with that.
or educating about different lifestyles, even within a school setting, I don't think that is enough to now get I don't think that is something that
right
now you need to make a bill just to make it to where even a guy like me, who I'm not a drag queen, but I would like to paint my fingernails black every once in a while, I want to have the freedom to do that. So if you have a bill that threatens my autonomy with your religion, that's whenever we have a problem.
I agree.
And it's going to make, and that that is the part that outrages me. But yeah, of course. And I've been to pride parades and everything, and obviously I'm 100% for LGBTQIA plus community. 100% back it.
Me too. But they go looks hard on the gay parade. I went to a gay parade with my parents, my family, when I was a kid. I know exactly what that feeling is like. Okay.
Yeah.
It's an odd feeling. It just, you feel like you've done something wrong. You're like, should I be watching this?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you two specific.
And we were just bystanders. We were actually just watching it. We were just happened to be there, and they had a parade. My parents didn't go there for it or anything like that.
And I think they should. Obviously, the LGBTQ community should definitely have parades. There's only two specific things that I'll name. One year I went, and this was at the time I was a Christian, and it was in that video that I sent you. One of the floats that came by had adult people dressed in bondage type clothing, if you want to call it that. And obviously I'm for them doing that, not at a family-friendly event, though. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about.
That's exactly where I stand, because that's how it was too. They were all leather chaps and bondage. Yeah. And my dad, for some reason, I remember this. There was a liquor store, and my dad just could not stop laughing. And he was, wait, no, listen. He was pointing it out. That, you want to know the name of this liquor store? It was this San Francisco. I shit you not. Maybe you can go look it up. It was called Suckers Liquors. Now that's funny. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, that's funny. Like that. But as a 13-year-old kid, have your dad going Suckers Liquors. You're like,
yeah,
come on.
I don't know. I mean, I don't really mind a liquor store. I mean, a liquor store is for adults. Maybe kind of like a strip club being named something dirty. I mean, it's there. It's there to stay. It's fine.
Somebody asked me if super chats are available. Yeah, it'd make a super chat. They're still there. Although some people, individual people, might have some issues. I know I've had that problem before. I went to go do a super chat and it won't let me. I don't know. I maybe refresh the browser, but yes, absolutely. If you want to help keep the lights on, send a super chat. You want to become a member of the channel, hit join. I still have Patreon too. If you want to become a Patreon, I still do these shows every Friday, and I hope they're entertaining. And I still come up with subjects that I find to be interesting that I want to talk about. And I think it's been working out pretty well, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Sucker flickers.
And well, what's funny is I was in a place, I think it was in North Carolina, it was Hatteras Island, and there's this place there called Dirty Dick's, and it's a seafood restaurant. And it didn't. As long as it doesn't have any. I mean, I don't care what people name things. I think it's funny thing. I think
it's funny too.
I mean, as long as they don't have any imagery to where I don't think that would be appropriate. Because if you're gonna have imagery, it should probably be in places where adult eyes are gonna see it. But and the other incident though that I was gonna tell you is actually a couple years ago when I went, and I don't regret ever. I don't regret because I was with an atheist organization locally here. And we had a float we were going through and everything. And I didn't see all the floats. So I don't know what all floats were there, but I just was focused on what we were doing. And then later on after the float, we were all kind of hanging out and everything. And I saw, two people come through, two young ladies come through. And the only thing that they had on for a top was were nipple tassels. And again, this is a family-friendly event. Kids and everything are there, and I think there's a time and place for the whole free the nipple movement and all that. But I hear that in other countries like what is it over in Europe and stuff, they're a little bit more.
Yeah, a lot of they have top. People are top.
Yeah.
Well, in San Francisco, you go topless now. In Northern California, you can't do it down here in Southern, from what I understand. I would have to look at the law, but I don't look at me like that. I don't know. Do you know? Wait, you can go topless out here?
Yeah, they have places set up over there in Palm Springs.
Oh, maybe. Okay, I guess.
Private areas.
Oh, yeah. I'm not talking about the private areas. I'm talking about the public areas. You can't just walk down the street topless. Now, in some areas of California, you can.
Yeah, maybe I'm out of pocket, but I was just I guess what I'm trying to say is kind of a shock to my senses because I didn't expect that, I guess. So maybe
to me it's all. I mean, there is a judgment to be had, right? Even the Supreme Court, when they ruled upon what considered to be porn, is basically, hey, look, when we see it, we know what it is when we see it, kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. There's no hard line to be to be had of what constitutes porn, right? There's a very subjective sometimes, and matter of fact, there's some videos, like for example, there's a group that I happen to like called Steel Panthers. Are you familiar with them?
No.
Okay, Steel Panthers is a mock band or a mock heavy metal 80s from the 80s band.
Yeah.
And their videos are very, very suggestive, if not full on, topless. I mean, they have naked these girls are full on topless on YouTube, but it's considered art, right? Mm-hmm. They get away with it because it doesn't violate the terms of service because they put it in a music video, so you have topless women in music videos. And then they also have instructional videos on sex on YouTube, believe it or not, full on. X-rated as you can get, but it's educational. So again, it really is, a lot of it is a judgment, and a lot of it is how you are viewing things. So if somebody is wearing a provocative outfit, that's one thing. But if they're wearing a provocative outfit, gyrating in front of a child, those are completely different things.
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe the second incident really isn't that even real. Maybe it's not even a deal, let alone a big deal. Yeah. I guess to me again, because you got to remember at that time I was fresh out of radical Christianity, so I guess at
everything was Satanism to you. Anybody who didn't believe to you was going to hell.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Yeah. So so I guess that's why it stuck out in my mind. So I guess ignore that second one, but yeah, you're right. I think so had they been gyrating in front of children, would have been that is an issue.
But you can see why they latched onto that. That's when they were like, "Oh, we're going to make a bill against this because of the pushback." Mm-hmm. So again, had they not been doing stuff like that, I don't think they would have been able to to mobilize people to say, oh, now we need a bill against this. Because again, I agree with you. If somebody wants to dress in drag, knock yourself out. I wouldn't be interested to go to a drag show, but it's still art. They're entertained by it. I have absolutely zero problem with it.
It may not be our thing, but it's theirs, and that's perfectly fine.
Absolutely. See, the left-hand path, as you said, but by the way, is a Wiccan thing too.
Yeah. That's what I hear. And what's really, let's see, what was I going to say about this? So for me, kind of, on the whole Satanism thing. So for me, I agree a lot with what, I agree way more with the Satanic Temple than I do with the Church of Satan. I think that the 9 satanic, like, for example, the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple are excellent. I don't have qualms with any of them.
Yeah, I think I agree with like 90%, 9 out of 10, or at least most. I mean, even then, they're minor things, but for the most part, there's nothing that I think is
well, that what we were talking, what you just mentioned, the 11 satanic statements. I'm sorry, the 11 satanic rules of the earth. That's for this. That's COS. The Satanic Temple just has the 7 tenets.
7 tenets, that's what it is.
Yeah, and then so those, there's nothing to correct on those, not at all. Now on the COS, 11 satanic rules of the earth. Number 10, you have to completely reject. No, wait, was it 10 or 7? I don't know, but one of them says to believe in magic. Whatever one that is, I completely reject that one. I think it was number 11, or there's a couple of them where it said basically like, if someone comes into your house and they disrespect you, treat them cruelly without mercy. I don't believe in that. I mean,
I remember that one too from the church.
Yeah, I think it's half right. You don't have to treat them well, but you don't have to treat them with cruelty without mercy. You can just basically say, okay, it's time for you to get out of my house. You're being disrespectful. And being firm, just firm with them, stern even, but you don't have to be a ruthless bastard about it.
Right.
And then there's another one that talks about, I think this one just needs clarification, but basically if someone's annoying you, tell them to stop. If they don't, destroy them. You could just take that metaphorically, that destroy part, and just say, I don't know, maybe you could roast them or something. You know what I mean? Like if they're getting on your nerves, you can just say, your eyebrows look like, if they have a unibrow, say your eyebrows look like one long caterpillar or something, and then just leave it at that. But you don't have to take it to its most logical extreme.
Like
you know what I mean?
Number 5 for the 7 fundamental tenets says beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit. Never should distort scientific facts to fit one's belief. Now, I do agree with that. However, I don't hold to the epistemological approach that science is the best way for knowledge. Now, do I think it's one of the best? Yeah. But here it says, to me, it's very, very, it's normative here. It's supposed to be an ought, that you ought to conform your beliefs to the best scientific understanding. However, science doesn't approach a lot of things. To me, it should be, beliefs should conform to one's best understanding of science and philosophical facts, or something along the lines of facts, that never distort them. But it just, to me, when they just say understanding of science should comport to one's best scientific understanding, that doesn't really encapsulate everything when it comes to epistemology, or a lot of it.
I actually do agree with you, and I made a Facebook post about that very thing, and I did actually say
the rest I agree with.
I would add rationalism to that
yes,
one
exactly.
So I would say that both empiricism and rationalism, if you do one to the exclusion of the other, you're just going to miss out on a whole lot, right? So I think you need to take both of them for what they're worth. And so, I guess
because I'm a huge fan of rationalism.
That needs to be made.
I like empiricism. Don't get me wrong, but empiricism is limited, and I think you to have a really robust epistemological framework, you really need to have some epistemological standards as far as not just adhering to one approach, but appreciating multiple approaches.
Yeah,
evidentialism. I do perform what's called I conform to what's called a weak form of evidentialism, not strong, and empiricism and rationalism. Those I think, and then you also have pragmatism and prudentialism. I think are important as well. But anyways,
yeah, you and I are in agreement there.
Yeah, the rest, like the rest of the tenets, yeah, like I said, they're mostly humanistic tenets. They're very close to what you would find in any kind of secular humanist approach. And again, the Satanic Temple tries to point out that if the really strong religious fundamentalists are going to start encroaching upon secular society, they're going to be there to basically piss them off. I mean, that's what they're doing, and I'm all for that, by the way. But to show them, look, you can't have your religion here without allowing other religions here, like ours.
Exactly.
This is why we want the separation of church and state. And it's just such common sense. If you believe in a particular view of Christianity and somebody else doesn't, and they're the ones that could be like making legislation, and they're the ones that are going to be pushing their ideology, you're going to be like going, wait a minute, no, they're wrong. It's salvation by grace, not by works alone. Or they're wrong about baptism. It's going to be it's just nonsense. It's either all or nothing. Either allow all of them, which I'm not a fan of, or allow none of them, which I am a fan of. But if you're going to allow one, you got to allow them all.
Yeah, and I mean, we do live in a pluralistic society, and I think that the Satanic Temple is here to remind the religious right that is indeed the case.
Yes.
And they've also made a good point, and I've heard this before. I don't know if it was from Lucian or somebody else, but so I've heard a Satanic Temple spokesperson or something talk about how they can kind of get into cracks and crevices that purely secular people can't get into. So, in other words, I guess what I'm getting at is like the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yeah,
Dan Barker and all that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Dan, but whatever.
Me neither.
I appreciate I appreciate what they're trying to do, but Dan is a professional musician, and he talks about epistemology as an expert. Which I'm not an expert. I don't ever claim to be an expert, but at least I have evidence for my positions. Dan doesn't. Dan's a polemicist and a satirist and a sophist in my regard. So I'm not a big fan of Dan Barker. But
no, I agree. I mean, he whenever I listen to him, there's quite a few times where I cringe. But...
It's sophistry, yeah. It's very cringeworthy. But but people listen to him like, oh, he's an atheist, But he's one of those angry atheist bottom barrel stuff. It's like, no, if you want to listen to an atheist, go study Ozzy and Oppie and Draper and Malpass and any of those guys. They got some good writings on it. And Mackey.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you and I are coming from, but it's really like pulling teeth to get people there. But the point that I was trying to make is that the Freedom from Religion Foundation at one point had to reach out to the Satanic Temple in order to kind of make some headway, and I can't remember exactly what the case was, and I think they wound up winning that one. But basically, I think it was the Ten Commandments thing. The monument.
The monument of the
I think that's probably what it was. And so with Satanists, we were able, in us being an actual religion, we were able to kind of get in there, and kind of basically do what the Freedom from Religion couldn't do, but wanted to do. And I think that's incredibly useful. And not only that, though, but they have to recognize, and then, of course, the conservatives try to pull the whole card. Well, it's not a legit religion. Well, I can actually.
What makes a legit religion? What's it seems legit to me.
It is, and I mean, I have a pretty good, okay, of course I would say this, but I feel like I have a pretty good definition of what qualifies as a religion. If you take the first time I heard about this, and it's a long ass thing. If you really wanted me to pull out the book, I could. But okay. Basically, so there's this really long ass thing, religion, and. Definition of religion in Oppie's book about that he got from two other guys. I forget their names at the moment. And anyway, there are parts. It is a stipulative definition, which means that they've looked at all these different kinds of religions, found out what's common amongst them, and they in theism, and basically you can make the case with this definition that theism and supernaturalism is sufficient for religion, yet not necessary.
Yes.
Because if you get rid of those parts and keep the rest of that definition, you still have a working definition of religion, which the Satanic Temple fits into, and probably in a much stronger philosophical way. And almost kind of, hopefully one of these days those guys will read that book and put that out there. And anyway, but the point is that you still have a strong philosophical case for, Satanism, secular Satanism being an actual religion and theism not being necessary for religion. And I think that we're talking about the future and what religion's going to look like in the future. I think that it would be great if religion just looked like that. It's something that you practice privately, you keep it to yourself, and obviously you would share it with others of like mind, but you wouldn't share it with people who don't care to hear about it, even if it's a satanic religion like mine. Like, I'm not going to sit here, like, here's a good example. I'm not just going to let's say come onto your show with a panel of a bunch of people and just out of nowhere be like, oh, have you guys heard about Satan? It's like,
let me tell you about the evil word.
Yeah, I know. Let me tell you about
the evil word.
Have you heard the even better news?
That's the whole thing, because have you heard the good? Have you heard the good news? Have you heard the evil news? Satan to begin your salvation.
I know. Have you heard the infernal?
Well,
news of our
there's
Dark
one of my
Lord?
favorite books I ever read in high school. I read a book called Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. One of the all-time best books ever written. It's if it's not one of my favorite, it's not in the top 2. It's definitely in the top 5, maybe even the top 3. It's just, I love that book. And there's a church that was started from that book called the Church of All Worlds. It is a legitimate church based upon the book of Stranger in a Strange Land. So yeah, churches can form off, some kind of similar ideology,
I mean, how did religions... Yeah, how did your most common religions get started anybody? Somebody had an imagination and made them up. Some religions are more boring than others, and of course that's going to be relative to you, what you find boring and what you find not boring.
I mean, somebody could argue, well, look at Pastafarianism. Is that a religion? Obviously that's a spoof religion. It's a parody. If somebody wants to call it a religion, I'm okay with it. If somebody doesn't, I'm okay with it. I can go either way because it is a parody, right? It's not meant to be taken seriously as a religion. And so, do you want to call it an actual religion? I really don't care one way or another.
Nah, I mean, potentially, I guess, but I get, and I think the Satanic Temple made a good...
It doesn't matter to me if somebody does. That's not a hill I would die on.
It's kind of like this. I mean, within every religion, you have factions within and breaks with that religion, schisms and all this. And so, you have, because I'm thinking, see, here's what I'm thinking. A lot of people, because I've been confronted with this before, and quite frankly, when it comes to my religion, I want to have a good experience. I don't want to sit and fight about it. However, in these spaces, you're just gonna have disagreement. That's just the way it is. I mean,
that's my life. That's my social. That's me on social media. Holy
Atheists
crap!
Disagree with each other.
Especially the last couple of days, dude. You don't even know the struggle's real.
I'm sure. I mean, like I said, in the atheist community, there's all kinds of disagreement. In the Christian community, there's all kinds of disagreement. I mean, and even there's disagreements among Muslims and Buddhists and Jewish people. I mean, Satanism is just no different. I mean, there's pantheistic Satanists. There's, theistic Satanists who are like being theism.
Yeah, those are more Luciferians, but yeah.
Yeah, and then so the distinction between Luciferianism is they'll have Lucifer as their actual patron, because sometimes they'll make a distinction between Satan and Lucifer being two different actual beings.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that as well.
Yeah, and then you have some who believe that he's just an energy and Lucifer and Satan are just two sides of the same coin, and then you have people like us, secular Satanists, as I like to call them, and they all fight with each other. They all fight with each other. The biggest fight that they have is who is an actual Satanist, who qualifies.
Well, that sounds like the no true Satanist fallacy.
Well, exactly. And I had that battle with one or two Satanists. I said, I'm not getting into this, man. I'm not fighting.
Well, especially because Church of Satan, they have a disdain for TST and probably.
Well, they have a disdain for everybody, and that isn't them. That's kind of creepy to me. It's like a cult mindset. That's
most people. Most people that join COS are narcissists. I mean, they're egotists to say the least.
Oh my God, yeah, dude. Oh man, that's why I threw this fucking book across the room is because the social Darwinism of the Church of Satan, the elitism of the Church of Satan, the gatekeeping of the Church of Satan, all of those are the biggest 3 satanic sins in my book
Yeah.
of Satan's, and
Yeah, no, I
that
agree with you. And that's why I'm not a fan of them either.
bro.
They
That's why I
all
chucked
that.
his book and didn't read the rest of it, because I don't care what else he has to say. And you know, again, the guy said some cool stuff. Like I said, the 9 satanic statements, the however many satanic sins, the 11 rules of the earth. You know, there's, you know, with clarification, those are good. But and then, you know, and I incorporate all those into my personal left-hand path. And, you know, and I'll even, for example, here's my thing. I think that atheistic Satanism is awesome. Non-theistic Satanism is great. The con is that for me, my perspective, it's kind of boring. Not gonna lie. I mean, like, for an example, first of all, excellent book, Lilith Star. If you're going to be a Satanist, get this one. This one's excellent. No, I have no complaints with it. It's not even boring. It's good. So, but here's two different ones. So this one is a book of rituals by Shiva Honey, and she's got some cool stuff in there. I'm not going to lie though. This kind of, I don't know, just kind of boring to me. This one, on the other hand, is absolutely fascinating. This, like, even though none of it's real, it's fascinating. And this is by a pantheist, demonolator, and who has Satan at the center of her pantheon.
Oh, I know a demonologist. Should have invited him on. Dang it, I had him on before.
Yeah. Oh man, demonolators are really cool, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, demonologers like
next time
cool
I'll in fact, wasn't that long ago I just talked to him. He's on my Facebook page.
And I think, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the thing about it is that I find it fascinating. It's kind of like this. I think the thing about the occult for me is that it captures the human imagination in the most fascinating way, because how cool is the idea of magic being real? You know, the idea is cool. I mean, you know,
well, it's not just cool in the ideas. It'd be cool to people like actually go research magic like they would science, just magical discoveries. How does this work? The laws of magic. But then of course you need a metaphysical accounting for the laws of magic of why they work the way they do, which is the same, by the way. When people ask for a metaphysical accounting of scientific laws, it's not dissimilar. They're asking for the same thing, believe it or not. They're asking for, look, if magic works, we can model it. We can make laws for it. You know, you put together these ingredients, this is going to happen. So there's some kind of determinacy and make predictions. However, why does magic work is a question. The same thing as why are there scientific laws to even be, you know, some that exist. Those are very, very similar questions that the way the theists would approach it, which I think a lot of atheists just discount by fiat. They don't seem to understand what a lot of theists are asking for when they're saying, but why is there something to even model as far as science? Why is the laws of the universe the way they are? Just like, why would the laws of magic be the way they are? You know, somebody had to make them that way. And intelligence would have made the laws of magic this way if it was based on demons and angels. By the way, that's the intelligent argument that they're trying to run with. And of course, it's a whole thing to be discussed about that. But I don't think a lot of people recognize that really is the crux of the intelligent argument, or the intelligent design argument, is something along the lines of some intelligence made the laws the way they are. If not, how do we account for them? You know, it's not an easy question, by the way. Real quick. So some of the live chats, Raisin Girl. Hi, Raisin Girl. Mwah. She says, satanic evangelist would be kind of amusing. Wouldn't it be? Can you imagine like a satanic faith, healer? But it'd be like, you'd be like, in the name of Satan, you've got cancer, and you've got cancer. You have Alzheimer's disease. Hail, Ava Satanas.
I mean, if the Christian conception of Satanism was true, yeah, sure.
It'd just be the opposite.
Because that's what they would do.
It'd be 100% off, a Christian faith healer.
But, here's the thing. That would be hilarious, but when you start looking into actual theistic Satanism and researching it, first of all, it's fascinating. I think it's really cool. There's parts of it that aren't really
Seems
cool.
rare, though. It seems rare because, I mean, almost all Satanism that you actually read about is atheistic Satanism.
That you read about, probably, but I mean, you would actually probably be surprised about how many there are. I mean, there's several YouTubers out there that I didn't think would actually exist, but they do. There's Alistair Noct on YouTube, there's Behemoth X on YouTube, ARS Goetia on YouTube. all those YouTube channels, check them out. They're cool. Don't terrorize them. Just leave them alone.
Are they theistic, theist or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, theistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, theistic. And then there's the one guy named D.H. Thorne. He's pretty cool. He's but I mean, at the same time, he's a little. I will admit, he's a little.
Well, maybe I'll reach out to one of them.
He's a pantheist, but he's a little weird.
I wouldn't mind interviewing a theistic Satanist because I really don't know any per se.
You probably, yeah. I would say the thing about Satanism in general is they're even more individualistic than the atheist community, and they don't really care to get into. They don't want to debate. They don't care about debating. They just want to do their thing. They don't want to bother anybody. They don't want to debate.
They don't want to convert. You don't want to convert anybody. They don't want to change anybody's mind.
They're usually Satanists, theistic or non. Like for an example, I'm against evangelism. I'm against the idea at the very least of satanic evangelism. I'm against the idea of it. And because again, I believe that religion should be a private matter between you and yourself. Keep it to yourself.
I'm cool with that. I'm not a fan of organized religion for that very reason.
And so I'm against evangelism. I don't like it. And all of the rest of us are the exact same. Or kind of being hyperbolic. There's some Satanists that get a little, so like they're not trying to convert you, but they're just trying to be assholes. Like they're just trying to be unnecessarily antagonistic. But that's not really a religion problem. That seems to me to be more of a people problem. Like there's just something within people, and what I mean is you have it in all kinds of communities out there. There's people going out just to be dicks. You know what I mean?
Should I do an experiment? Should I get a GoPro and go door to door and say, "Hi, I'm Steve, the a-holy pope of agnosticism. Can I tell you about the good word of positive atheism?"
Yeah, I know. Or can I tell you about the gospel of suspending judgment?
Yes, hallelujah. I think maybe I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yeah, I know. Probably
I'm not
hallelujah.
convinced.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so they just don't really. They don't do that. It's not their culture. It's not our culture.
Yeah.
We don't.
No, and I respect that. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of door-to-door religious sales. I don't understand it. I mean, I get it from their perspective that they think they're doing good, they're converting people. But at the same token, to me, it's just reinforcing their own personal beliefs. That's all they're trying to do. They're trying to convince other people to believe like them, so they're more convinced themselves that they're reinforcing their own particular beliefs. Matter of fact, somebody had a video the other day. I think it was, who was it? It was, Secular Outpost. If you don't follow him on YouTube, on Twitter, you should. But Secular Outpost, he put a video, a little clip on the Mormon leader talking about, well, if you can't afford to eat and you can afford, tithing, you should put your money in tithing rather than food. God will provide for you, kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is so antithetical to what I would think a religion would preach. If it came down between you eating and giving tithes to the church, buy a fucking Big Mac.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You can quote me on that.
No doubt, man.
Quote me on that.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. And that's what, we get accused of being selfish people, Satanists and everything. That's only half true. I mean, we do glorify the self. We we put self as number one, but at the same time that most of us don't reject altruism as a virtue. And so, we're going to say, feed yourself, feed your family, take care of you.
Fine if you can, it's not a heavy loss to you, right? I mean, somebody the other day was like,
that's what we mean.
I explained to them, if you give all your money away, you give everything you own away, then you're now destitute, and somebody's going to have to give it to you. It's a never-ending process. If altruism is the way to go, if some kind of Ayn Randian approach to objectivism. By the way, the anti-objectivism, I say, because the anti-Randian approach, because Randians were against altruism. They would believe that altruism doesn't exist. And I don't think pure altruism does exist. I don't think it does. But if you were to give away everything, what good does that do, right? You have to take care of yourself. And then when you get into sufficiency to help other people, do so. right?
Yeah,
We've
well,
all
that's the
helped
satanic
people.
rule.
Yeah, and
that's the satanic rule. I mean, that's you
YouTube
actually
survives
said it
on
better than
that.
I did.
Look, when people like when people like the content and they super chat and they become members and Patreons, they're telling you, hey, look, I have enough for myself. I want to give something for entertainment. I'm being entertained, and I want to give back. I mean, that's how all of us, when I do a super chat, it's because, hey, look, I'm enjoying the content. Here's a statement that you're going to read or something to be funny. Because I'm not going without a Big Mac. I can still buy a Big Mac. I'm not going without if I donate, because I have enough to do so. That, I think, is how society should run. That to me is a form of altruism, but it's not pure, and it shouldn't be. You're always going to get something out of altruism by some kind of altruistic act. Oh no, okay, no problem. But you can't give away everything. You can't, as they say, I should say this. The saying is, put your oxygen mask on first, right? Because if you don't take care of yourself and you don't have self-sufficiency and you don't take care of your own well-being, you cannot do any good to anybody else.
Exactly.
And I'm horrible at this. I know I need to go to the doctor. I know I've been postponing it and postponing it and postponing it.
Same here, bro.
I was going to do it this morning. It was my day off. I still, pissed it off. I'm going to.
Exactly.
I keep telling myself I'm going to do it. My roommate's been bugging me. I got this cough. I got to get checked out. Some other stuff, and I know I need to. I'm like, shit. What's going to happen is I'm going to end up dying in a couple of years, going, God damn it, I should have. But what, I'm just so lazy when it comes to that. But I realize that if I can't take care of myself, I can't help out my roommate.
Exactly, and I'm the same way. I need to go and get my heart checked out again because I've been having some weird problems with it lately, kind of freaky. But
that's nothing to joke with. At least I got a solid ticker, man. Last time I had an EKG, the guy literally said, "Hey, you want to see a textbook, EKG?" It was, I guess, textbook. Doesn't mean you can't have heart problems, but it just, it put my mind at ease a little bit.
No, that would be nice to have, for
no
sure.
Arrhythmia or anything like that.
Exactly, and I'm pretty much just taking it easy, but
good.
But no, I totally agree with you. You actually. I mean, that's exactly what I was trying to get at was, you can't just, you can't give out of your, and that's another thing that Jesus said. I mean, I look at the book of the Bible as just a book of propositions that can either be true or false. And a lot of Christians see that as blasphemy because how could it be false? How could any of the propositions be false? Well, it's real simple. Like Jesus was wrong whenever he said that, he commended the lady who gave from, all these other guys gave out of their abundance is what he said. He said they gave out of their abundance, but she gave out of, basically out of her poverty, and he commended her for that. Well, that's a stupid thing to commend somebody for. You shouldn't do that. What you should do is help her get herself to a point where she can be self-sufficient, and then give out of her abundance. There's nothing morally virtuous about somebody who takes their very last coin that they could have spent on themselves to feed themselves and their family, especially back in Jesus's day, and then say, oh yeah, I'm just going to give it to the church. And then now you can see where that exact verse is being abused to do the thing that the Mormon guy said.
Yep, exactly. That is exactly my point. Verbatim, better articulated, but verbatim. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that. I mean, it's just, to me, it preys upon people's fear that if they don't conform with the wishes of the church, there's going to be repercussions. There's going to be ramifications. And that to me is just, fear tactics. I mean, because I look, I've seen the families that live by this. I know the families that lived, got to pay the tithing. And I got to tell you, some of them did not fare very well. They lived a long time in very poor conditions. I know one person in particular, he all his life, he, great dad, great father. His sons were my best friends. He gave tithing and he believed all the way to the end. And then he died of a very horrific bacterial infection. And it's like, why does God do this kind of stuff? That just, you're supposed to be, God's supposed to, prop you up and give you, wealth or prosperity for yours and all this stuff. That never happened. It was a lie. I mean, I can't tell you how many Mormon families I've seen suffer because they give to tithing and cannot feed their families and are really just, you got 8 kids and you're giving 10% of your income away.
I know. And I know, 3 wives, 8 kids. Like,
Yeah.
dang, man.
Now, I know another family, a guy that I grew up with, he's got like 6 kids, but he's also extremely well off. You know, he got his
Yeah.
engineering degree. He
Nice.
he actually all the high rises in LA, the big buildings are being retrofitted with something that he and his company developed called slide plate technologies, where you have these slides that slide like this. So if there's an earthquake, it absorbs it. He owns the company.
Wow,
He's the
cool.
CEO of the company. He did very well for himself. And he converted to Mormonism like about 17 or 18, I guess he was. He came from a very predominant Catholic family too, but he's still very much a believer because, you know, for him, he was successful, you know, and so he's going to look at that and go, oh, look, I gave my tithing. I was successful. I was blessed with a wonderful wife. His wife's incredible. You know, he has amazing, beautiful children. He's happy. He's lived a very good life. But on the other hand, here's this other family that I know that were best friends with us as well. They didn't do so well. And so, you know, one of them is, you know, reconsidering, you know, LDS and, you know, see some problems with it. But you see how something reinforces your belief, because some people are going to do well and some aren't. So some who give tithing will be blessed only because of, you know, large numbers, and then some won't. But it's just random. It's just based upon, you know, factors of life.
Yeah. And, you know, that's exactly right. And, you know, you see that across the board in different Christian denominations, especially because, again, I mean, there's provisions in the Bible to make these kinds of inferences if you want to. And it just winds up being this kind, or what it can wind up being is a system of oppression, you know. And then, you know, and then you have people who come out of it and get all upset, and then next thing you know, you got a new atheist movement.
Yeah, exactly.
And they kind of screwed themselves on that. I mean, if you think that, if you really want to blame anybody for new atheism, man, you can go ahead and point at the 4 horsemen, which obviously you should, but you really should just be you also should be pointing at the church too. I mean, they made, because no one likes being scorned or burned, you know, by a body, like an organization basically, who they put all this faith and trust and love and hope and time and money and effort and energy into.
Scientology.
They grow up in it. Yeah, they grow up in it. Their parents believe it. Their grandparents believe it. Their parents before that believed it. You know, probably all the way back up to Jesus.
It's almost like a sunk cost fallacy.
I know. And then it's just like, or law of diminishing returns too, you know, and it's like, unless that's the same thing.
No,
sorry, I just got off work.
They're not.
But anyway, the law of diminishing returns and everything. It's just like, and then after a while, people are starting to identify it and get angry with it and upset by it. The fact that they were fooled by it, you know.
Yep. Super chat, Garrett Segley, he figured out how to use super chats. £5. Thank you. He says, I know it's off topic. Is there any chance the Non-Sequitur Show will come back more powerful than before? Or are you satisfied with 40 watchers? No, there is no chance of that. Probably. I am satisfied with that because I do this show because I enjoy it and it's fun for me. And if people want to watch, to me, I'm just hanging out with Chris, having a conversation about topics we enjoy. And if people want to watch and they want to donate and they want to become members and they want to go along with the ride, great. Do I have any expectation it'll be what it was? Nah, the momentum's gone on that. It's quite all right. I mean, if there's a 2.5 year lag, and if there were so many dishonest players and so many people in the atheist community that just, you know, were just so dishonest and lied and smeared, it's just never going to be able to be, you know, the same of what it was. It's just too much tarnishment because of, you know, dishonest people. I mean, when you have somebody who goes out of the way just screw over an entire community and steal, you know, tens of thousands of dollars and drag it out for 2.5 years, and then lie to the court, it's really difficult to come back after that. You know, and so it's always going to be marred by that, unfortunately, and it's a shame. But yeah, I have no expectation. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. To me, I'm not in it for the views. I don't base my value on how many viewers I have. I'm not a social media person who says my self-worth is dependent upon how many people want to listen to me. If I have one person listening, that's one person I'm engaging with. You know, I have multiple platforms on social media. You know, I talk on Facebook. I talk in Facebook groups. I talk in you know, Twitter. And so to me, it's just me doing what I like to do. And if people want to come along for the ride, great. If they don't, then there's a shit ton of other stuff to watch. But I think this was a really good stream. I think this was a good topic to discuss, and I think that it really raised awareness of why people might be moving towards a more secular society, and in that regard, embracing Satanism or the tenets of Satanism, and maybe not even know it. And that is something to be said, that Christianity came about 2,000 years ago because of people's mindsets, people's beliefs, and so will Satanism take over? No. But it's just Christianity's a juggernaut. But who knows what might be changed to the story 2,000 years from now? There's a whole narrative that would have been had that would have played out differently in a different universe. And I do agree with, like, I think it's Penn Jillette that said, was it Penn? I think so. But it basically said, look, if the universe rewound itself and we went back in time and had to redo things all over again, scientific discoveries would be the same, but religion would not be. I do believe that. I believe that religion would be very different if things played out differently. So, yeah. So, but I appreciate the super chat. But do you guys agree with me on that? I mean, does that make sense?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, like I think, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, is that I think that Satanism, the Satanic Temple Satanism, I think that I think they're ahead of the game, and they're not the first to do it. I mean, there's Buddhists out there who will take the teachings of Buddhism just simply as philosophy and a way to live life, engage in meditation and things, but they don't necessarily have to. They don't feel like they necessarily have to embrace the supernaturalism, and and that's a great thing. And I think taking that kind of an approach to religion, where your religion is just metaphorical, allegorical. Like I like to just go into a room and pretend I'm a dark wizard for like an hour. That's
hey,
you know what I mean.
I love that.
That's
Look, people play
awesome.
D&D. I play video games. I'm still trying to get through Witcher 2. I haven't gotten back to it. I played Witcher 1 and I played most of Witcher 3, and I want to play it in sequence. So you can import games. That's our escapism.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. And by the way,
therapeutic.
Michelle says she doesn't have a clue what happened to Non-Sequitur. I still do this. It really weird. 3 years later, people. Maybe longer, I don't know, but it's been at least 3 years and people still don't know fully what happened, which is really amazing to me because it's a hell of a story. And you know what though, Chris, the takeaway from the story was Steve was right. I was right about all of it. I proved my case. I literally showed that somebody lied in court and that lied in depositions and submitted false evidence, and they were lying all along. I stood by my guns and I stood for what I believe in, and I talk about what I believe in. And this is what bothers me on social media when I go on Twitter and I say something that I believe. Instead of somebody saying, "Hey, Steve, let's talk about your beliefs and let's have a discussion about it. Maybe I can change your belief with evidence." And I always say, "You can change my mind with evidence." And they start insulting me because of my beliefs. That's not how you get through to somebody. If you think my belief is wrong, change my mind with evidence. But when I ask you questions and you don't answer those questions, you're not going to change my mind very easily because I think you're going to be a dishonest interlocutor. I try to answer questions the best of my ability when people are having conversation with me. But I have literally people, "Oh, you're just wrong. Okay, well, what about this? Oh, that, I'm like, but you're not even going to answer my questions. And yet I'll cite papers, I'll cite sources, and I'll be like, okay, I'm not the only one that feels this way. So obviously there's some contention here. There's obviously some kind of controversial issue. Some people believe this, some people believe this. I happen to fall on this side of the spectrum. But you know what? Change my mind. And I don't think a lot of people have the ability to actually articulate their position well enough to change somebody's mind. And so what they have to do is they have to end up insulting somebody. Now, look, I'm not above insulting people. I think people are stupid. A lot of people are. I will call you a dumb fuck if you're a dumb fuck. I will say you're inept if you're inept. But you will never see me going to educated people saying those things. But when a person doesn't, I've never looked into this, but let me tell you why you're wrong. Really?
Yeah, that's annoying.
Really?
And it's just like, that's super annoying. I mean, it's like, and it's not necessarily that you have to be like, it's not, so you don't, in order to win empathy, to get empathy, you don't have to be the most educated person. At the same time, don't come in with this like heated attitude with so your confidence in what you do or don't believe should be proportionate to the evidence you have, right?
Yes.
Or don't have, whatever. And so whenever you come in with all this, whenever you're coming in hot, and it's all just hot air because you don't have anything to back it up. I'm sorry, but you make it very hard to,
especially when you're going against the liberal paradigm or the woke paradigm. I mean, I am not PC. It has put, if you go look at my Twitter, it says a tail sign, which is a not PC. I have a little tail that says tail PC. You know what that means? Not politically correct. I've never claimed to be politically correct. Okay, I've never been politically correct in my entire life. I grew up with stuff that just now people are talking about that has been around since the 70s. This is not new stuff that people that, like, for example, if people have been following the conversations on, not to segue, but since it's going to come up on the show one of these days. Anyways, critical race theory, this is not something new, even though it's been reformulated and rebranded and repackaged and structuralized. It is not dissimilar concepts to what I had to deal with in the 70s and 80s. But again, if somebody's going to tell me that they're objectively right about something, I'm not going to be able to have a conversation with them unless you're having unless it's math. I don't know how you can be objectively right on something. It just makes it math. There's some philosophies like maybe moral realism, but even then you don't have to accept moral realism. I do, but you don't have to accept it. Doesn't mean that you're wrong.
And I don't, and that's where, and it's okay to be friends with people that you disagree with. Like, for an example, I would say I'm more of a moral skeptic. Not necessarily like, let's see. I don't think that there are. I don't necessarily know that there are moral facts. I think that you can, like, I take more of a philosophical hedonism. I take more of a hedonistic utilitarian approach, where long and short of it is you do you increase the amount of pleasure of, I guess, the most amount of people that you can, in a really simplistic way of putting it. And so I'm more of but you can make, like, for example, I could make a utilitarian kind of argument for the death penalty and against the death penalty if I want to.
Oh, I agree. No, I'm the same way.
And that's the subjective nature of it, right?
That actually, what I did in college, I did something on the death penalty. I argued for it, but I could actually argue it against it as well. It depends.
I know. Yeah. And I'm for the death penalty, just to kind of throw it out there, for only two groups of people. Number one, people who we can show are definitely
beyond any doubt.
Yeah, beyond it. Like, so for example, I think it was right for them to kill Ted Bundy. Yeah. They should have done that. That was a good thing, good moral thing to do. Also, I'm not against that. This might be a little bit more controversial, and I understand, but and maybe it's more of a feelings thing. I don't know, but I think that offending pedophiles should also be put to death. And the reason I say that is because you take a child, right, the most innocent form of human that there is, and not only do you defile it, but you cause, when I say defile, I just
irreparable
mean, like,
mental harm.
Yeah, irreparable mental harm. That's all I mean. I don't mean like there's something wrong with them now, but like you cause mental harm that sticks with them for a lifetime. And I mean, it causes. There's an argument to be had there. Suicide. It can be caused.
See, I get the argument. I don't know if I would ever advocate for that. I'm not saying that I wouldn't be against it.
That's fine.
I'm agnostic on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But because I am more for death penalty for violent offenders. If for example, if the child was violated and killed, get rid of them. Throw them out an airlock.
Oh my God! Yes.
There's no at that point. There's not even, to me, even. I don't want to even have a discussion at that point. It's just,
for a person like that,
toss them out of an airlock. I couldn't get. Yeah, put them in space. Throw them in the sun. I don't give a flying fuck. And people like go, well, they're still a person. No, they're not.
They gave up their humanity as soon as they took the humanity.
And that's what I argue. I argue that exact same thing, but I'm a bad person to some people who are arguing that.
Fine, I guess I'm a bad person. I don't really care.
Gerald Slade for £5 says, I loved your answer. Thank you. He says, Res Rhetoric appeared to make the Non-Sequitur Show great again. Do you know if he would deliver the goods? Last time I bother you. It is great. I mean, first of all, I'm not MAGA, but you know what? This is great. You're basing a show off views rather than content and quality. I think the shows lately have been amazing. I've been loving having these discussions, and people have been messaging me that they like it. The comments have been good. They're not enough. I keep telling people to leave comments. But, I get comments all the time. Go look at all the videos. Great show on this, and I enjoyed the conversation. It was engaging. I learned this. That, to me, is great again. I don't know what you expect, as far as what, it constitutes being great again. It's not about the numbers. It's about the quality. I always put quality of content over quantity of content or views and things of that nature. I just don't play those types of YouTube games. And that's why I'm never going to be a big YouTuber of any consequence. I'm not going to be famous of any consequence. I have some name recognition, at least in the atheist community. I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. I am the atheist devil. But you know what? That's about as far as it's ever going to get. I'm okay with this. Look, I came into the scene and I put my public information out there. My name's known. Everything, my life is known. I have probably been dragged through the mud than most YouTubers will ever see in their life that I've in the last couple of years. And I've survived it, and I've thrived in my own way. I'm happy. I work now, and I do this for fun, and people want to listen. I think that's success. I'm okay with that. So yes, do I think Non Sequitur is great? Yes, I love this show. I like doing it, and I did it for a while. I actually told people that, I was not liking the direction of the show. I wasn't happy doing the show, and that just wasn't, years ago. That was, even recently. But I'm getting more zest for it and zeal because I have, specific days off now. I have content that I like to do and things that I like to talk about. And there's a lot more passion there. And if you don't have passion for the show, why bother? And that's why, a lot of times I just didn't do the show, or it just didn't seem like I was that interested. This is something I'm interested in. And so I like this. And so I don't know how else to answer. I mean, Chris, you want to weigh in on that? As a viewer, as a watcher?
Man, as a viewer and a watcher, man, I love your show, both on this channel and the Steve McRae channel. I tune into them both. I mean, usually if I'm interested in the topic, but that's the thing. I mean, usually You're talking about topics that I'm interested in. Probably the only ones I don't watch are the ones where, you're talking about that one lady who's who's not too nice to you, Wocab or whatever her name is. Yeah.
You mean Katie Joy Paulson without a crystal ball? Yeah. The most dishonest piece of shit human I've ever met in my entire life. That one? One of them. I don't know if she's the. Yeah, no, there's so many. I don't know if she's a number one, but she is definitely she's just. And I can't recite to you the specifics, but I believe you and I take your side. But I also at the same time I don't want her smoke, so I don't really I'm not really wanting to, Well, she made her start from the show, so she was a co-host on the show. But yeah, that's some of the stuff I do talk on my other channel, Steve McRae. If you want to go subscribe to that channel. But I try to have variety in that show, and so I know certain people that are going to watch one show may not watch another, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing here. People that may be interested in astrophysics, they'll listen to, Hugh Ross, but they may not be interested in biology or something. So I like to have a lot of different kind of content, and that's one of the reasons. Again, I'm probably not going to be that huge because I'm all over the place. I don't have a central thing, and it's okay. Yeah.
Unless you want to just talk about just the broad category of the philosophy of religion, or just kind of, if you want to be put into the secular, broad stroke, kind of a thing. But other than that, you don't have like a niche. I only talk about biology. I only talk about philosophy. I only talk about this, that, and the other.
Oh, somebody says, well, Reds show up more. Yeah. Reds has a lot going on in his real life. Reds is also doing a lot of flat Earth stuff on his channel again. Yay!
Awesome, man. So I would love. You need to hold a debate between him and. I know the whole flat Earth debate's like dead basically, but I would love to see him debate a flat Earther again. Like I know you have other videos.
He still does it. But, he still wants to debate on this channel too, flat Earth stuff. But on this channel he really wants a really. I don't know what the word is because I don't want to say qualified flat Earth because I don't know what the hell that would mean. But, right? But somebody of a higher note in the flat Earth community rather than the low level nobodies that they just kind of like throw rocks at him kind of stuff. But I talk to Reds just about every other day.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. And
by the way, he has a standing. He knows he can come on any time he wants. He just sends me a message and I give him a link. Bye. That's my roommate. And so he'll be on when he can. Raisin says things went off the rails for a bit. That's a good way of putting it. So I wasn't about, but I like that you're back on content. I enjoyed when we met. Always do you, Steve. You're Raisin. And I appreciate that. And I also noticed that Raisin's girl said something that somebody else noted the other day too. When people come in and they ask questions, nobody's condescending to them. Nobody's demeaning and say, "Oh, how do you not know this?" It's, "Oh, yeah, let me tell you about this." That's, I think, is how you should approach, talking about different subjects. And yet, you hear a lot of people, Steve's so mean to people and demeaning. I'm like, no, I just think that if you are telling me I'm wrong in something and you can't give me the evidence for it, and you're just saying I'm wrong by fiat because it cannot be any other way, that's not an argument to me.
You know what's amazing to me, and I've been seeing this.
And Land will be on more too. Yeah, I mean, as soon as they're available. I mean, it's just scheduling stuff. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, it's cool. No, what's kind of funny to me is that, like, so yeah, I say that there are no gods, right? But what's really interesting is I've been running into new atheists that will say God is impossible because if he existed, he would be natural, not supernatural.
Yeah, bad argument.
And I'm having a hard time connecting. I mean, I've heard that before. I feel like Matt Dillahunty at one time said something similar.
Arn says that. I think Arn argues.
Maybe it was
Arn and Santa Q argue that God's impossible. And the problem with that is that any philosopher with their salt is going to instantly pounce on that and go, "Do you have a modal proof for that?"
No kidding, bro. Like,
right? I mean, that's a hell of an argument. Amazing. A hell of a claim.
I know, and it's like, I'm dogmatic, bro. Come on now.
Well, because I think a lot of them don't distinguish between different forms of impossibility, right? I mean, there's biological impossibilities, right? A dog is not going to give birth to a cow. Okay, there's nomological impossibilities, which is like the laws of science. You're not going to have suddenly, gravity stop working, and you're not going to have over unity devices. These are nomological impossibilities. And then you have metaphysical impossibilities, and logical impossibilities. X does not equal X. Those are impossibilities. If something's impossible, when you just do it, when you say the word impossible, generally you're going to be metaphysically or logically impossible. God is not metaphysically impossible. God is not logically impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
There's just no way I think you could ever argue that in a coherent manner. Now, if you say, well, the resurrection of Jesus Christ is impossible, you're going to have to explain why. And then you say, well, biologically. Oh, yeah, well, of course. No, there's no theist that's going to argue that biologically it's not impossible. That's the whole point. It was a miracle that suspended that. So there's something called, I don't know if you heard the term markness in language.
What in language?
Markedness. When it's marked or not. So
no.
when a word is used and it's unmarked, it's just how it's generally used in conversation rather than something that's marked.
Yeah, like colloquial, you mean?
Yeah, it's something like that. It's just the simplicitor, I guess you can go look at it. So when you say,
okay,
if I say, resurrections are impossible, to come back from the dead is impossible. Being marked there would probably infer biology, right? In that context, it means biology, right? But if in the theological realm, if you're arguing against a theist and you say, hey, to a theist, hey, I don't believe in God because this is impossible, but the theist is going to say, well, yeah, we know it's biologically impossible. But the argument is that it's a metaphysical possibility because God made a miracle, which he is correct. It would be a metaphysical possibility, whether God did or not, obviously, whatever. And so you have to be real, important, in how you're using that word impossible. So for Aaron Ra or Shannon to say that God is impossible, they're talking about metaphysics at this point. They're not talking about any other subject, biology or physics. They're talking metaphysically, and that's a hell of a claim to justify.
Yeah, exactly, man. I just can't go that far, man. That's just too.
That's a lot of
course, but I'm also against dogmatism of almost any kind.
Yeah.
Aaron
is a dogmatist.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I already know that. But
and how many times did they say I was wrong on stuff but never showed it?
I know, right?
And then Matt Dillahunty comes later on, years after the fact. Matt Dillahunty is like, those agnostics. Oh well, they did have a right, not to mention my name, but he's like, agnostics have a right that agnostic atheism is nonsensical. Well, no shit, Matt. I told you. I've been putting this out for years. So so funny. I get vindicated years after the fact. I just was talking to somebody else about this. That it's I stick by my guns. I make my arguments, and then it isn't until like 3 or 4 years later go, God damn, that Steve guy, he was right.
I know.
Fuck me. And at that point, nobody cares any longer, right?
I know, right?
Oh well.
So.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. I appreciate this, Chris. I think this was interesting.
Man.
I mean, we didn't have to get very deep, but I think we made the point that a lot of people are turning towards Satanism as some kind of I hate the word salvation, but some kind of salvation from radical Christianity. I see it happening more and more, and I'm happy that we're able to discuss it, because Christians need to be aware of this. And by the way, let me put out to the Christians, if you think people are turning to Satanism, that they're worshiping the devil, you've got it all wrong. You are starting from a foundation of wrongness. And I think that's going to bite you in the ass, because all you're going to be able to do at that point is just convince the believers who already believe this. You're not going to change the mind of anybody who's rational and that understands what is really going on. And so as a theist and as a Christian out there, if you want to argue to your people just because you want to maintain your power base, which I think a lot of YouTubers that are Christians do, go for it. But I got to tell you, you're not changing the minds of anybody. I think what's changing the minds are people like Temple of Satan, the Temple of the Satanic Temple, that are going out there and showing the problems with the encroachment of religion in secular society. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Guys, if you want to leave, I got one last thing on the live chat. Floyd says, don't be silly. God is impossible because God is immaterial and only immaterial things can exist. So God is impossible because he's immaterial, because materialism is true. That's how they would, that's how I've seen people argue. Like, that's my fiat. Materialism is true, therefore God doesn't exist. Okay, you're going to accept materialism is true, and by extension, it would be by your belief that God doesn't exist, because that's a epistemic entailment, or at least an implication. I wouldn't say entailment. This is, by the way, when Dr. Demi reviewed my paper, this is kind of thing he kind of pinged me on a little bit, and I agree with him. So I'm kind of being very careful in my words. There's a difference between implies and entails, right? So if you are a materialist, you're not entailed to believe there's no God, but you're certainly epistemically committed, and implies that you do. There's a difference. All right. But if you guys want to leave a super chat on the video comment, you can do that now. I will read that every time. If somebody leaves a super chat, I'll read it the next program, and I will respond to anybody that leaves a super chat. So if you want to donate to the channel to keep the lights on, that's one way to do it, through super, what do they call them? I don't know. Super something or other. Super comments, maybe. If you want to become a channel, hit join. I do appreciate it. You would get a really cool green name, because like I said, it does help. I'm still trying to do this, and if I can earn a little money on it, that's great too. But I haven't earned much at all lately, and that's fine. I'm still doing it because I'm doing it because I enjoy it. Maybe eventually some people will want to become members again when they see the content that's being put out, because this is good stuff. And Chris, I thank you for coming on and talking about it.
Not a problem, man. Hail Satan.
All right, guys, peace, and we're out.